Venafi provides an enterprise platform to control keys and certificates within a computer architecture from an enterprise perspective. Certificates and keys exist on every component within a computer architecture. It is the way that the computer architectures, a computer network, components identify one another within the architecture, so that a server knows that it's communicating with the correct router, switch, or whatever device or service application that it's connected to. Our customers are the Global 5,000. Our mission is to provide to as many of the Global 5,000 organizations and large government entities, well, actually any government entity, the ability to manage, control, and protect their keys and certificates. I would like to direct people's attention to the concept of a spy. Spies throughout history have been absolutely devastating in certain areas. They are able to counteract the might of entire countries and armies with access to the right information at the right time. And the way that a spy does what they do is, number one, they acquire an insider status to an architecture, to an organization, and then they are able to access information and exfiltrate that information out of the environment to people who you don't want to have that information. And the results can be absolutely devastating. And from the concept of a spy, what a spy deals with is information and access to it. And if we abstract that concept, the entire purpose of a computer architecture, a computer enterprise, is to acquire, control, protect, and distribute properly information. And so anything that compromises the information puts the entire enterprise at risk. And there exists today within every computer architecture out there the tool to access information from an insider perspective and be able to exfiltrate that information without observation by all of the computer defense and cyber defense mechanisms that have been put in place today. Because if there is access to certificates and keys and compromise therein, you're capable then of creating encrypted channels that allow the attacker to move within and around the architecture and to exfiltrate data at will, completely beyond the purview of all of the billions of dollars and hundreds and thousands of people focused on cybersecurity, because what they're doing, how they're acting, is they're accessing information, they're encrypting it, and then they're moving it. And once it's encrypted with a certificate and a key that's trusted within the architecture, you've basically lost control. Now, why is this important? Well, as I mentioned earlier, every computer architecture has hundreds, thousands, and in the case of Department of Defense, millions of these certificates and keys attached to every component within the architecture. And so if there is compromise in a certificate and a key, you basically have the keys to the kingdom. And all of the defensive strategies, all of the vast sums of money, the $100 billion plus that DoD has spent, now becomes effectively useless because they can't see that encrypted traffic. Keys and certificates, since they're a fundamental part of the internet and computer architectures, are by the most part blindly trusted within the architecture. And once encrypted traffic is created, it is also blindly trusted. And since it's encrypted, the defensive strategies lose control. They lose insight. And it becomes a huge exposure because it is so fundamental. It's the foundational, one of the foundational building blocks of every computer architecture. And unfortunately, since these things were put in place at the origin of the internet and at the the first building of computer architectures, nobody's really thought about them since. And 20 years ago, it may not have made much of a difference. There weren't a lot of components within the architectures. There weren't as many people connected to them. But today we have millions of people connected to these enterprises. We have hundreds of thousands of these certificates and keys associated in every enterprise, and no control. They manage them with spreadsheets, with some guy in an operational department somewhere in a basement trying to keep up, and it's just not sufficient. And NIST has provided now a variety of guidance documents in cybersecurity focused specifically on instruction, guidance, recommendations, and standards that require everybody to automate the control of their keys and the certificates from an enterprise perspective. And that essentially is Venafi's value add for an organization. We provide an enterprise platform to manage all of those certificates and keys, regardless of flavor, regardless of origin, within an architecture. And without that control, it's virtually impossible to do any valid risk mitigation. It's virtually impossible to provide true computer security because there's a back door to all of your information, to every processor. And right now, in almost every large enterprise we talk to in the Global 5,000, with the exception of our customers, of course, they have thousands of certificates, hundreds of thousands of certificates. They don't know the origin of them. They don't know where they are. They don't know who controls them. And they have no way to manage them, except with some very reactionary, after-the-fact, manual kinds of approaches with spreadsheets or, piecemeal functionality from a point solution here, a point solution there. But that, in today's enterprise, is not sufficient. And so when you ask what we do, in a nutshell, maybe bigger than a little nutshell there, that's what we do. We provide that enterprise platform. And we're the only people on the planet, actually, today that's doing it. So it's our mission. And at the end of the day, we don't really care if a customer buys from us, but they, number one, need to be aware that this part of their environment exists and that they need to get some control over it. They need to get enterprise control over it if they're concerned about cybersecurity in any effective way. And that's what we do. We've found examples where somebody has had a certificate installed in their money transfer system that was from GoDaddy. You don't want somebody to own a certificate in your money transfer system that you didn't issue, yet we found it in a major bank. You look at Cardinal Health. You look at OPM, which is, I think, easily one of the greatest cybersecurity disasters the federal government has experienced. It was an OpenSSL certificate exploit. So certificates are absolutely fundamental to the architecture. They're absolutely fundamental to cybersecurity defense. And it's shocking that people don't even think about it. It's like not thinking about the foundation in your house. We don't. I mean, it's just there. But if your foundation were to crumble tomorrow, it doesn't matter how many millions of dollars you've put into the house that rests on it, that house is now worthless. And so what we're doing, Venafi as a corporation, and our mission within the Global 5000 is to protect the foundation of all of our customers and all of our prospects' computer enterprise.